So hello everyone, I hope you guys are not tired. It's almost the end of this conference. It's been 2 very hectic days for you, for the speakers as well. So I just need you to just stick with me for the next 20 minutes. It's not long, just 20 minutes, and I'm going to talk about something very different today. It's not AI or it's not MCP and all the buzz, but it's about something more legacy. It's about developer experience, and you'll know what it is in the next slides. And it's also very important for me to mention that, okay, I've only got like less than 20 minutes, actually 18 minutes. So I've tried putting all my thoughts into these 18 minutes, but the goal behind this talk is not to give you actionable insights or anything that you can just readily put it into your API and okay, now it automatically works better. But it's more of, just some knowledge and a lot of references, so that you can just, when you encounter something similar, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this guy from API days, he talked about, developer experience and all of that. So yeah, this is the topic, making OpenAPI more human, going beyond the spec. Your speaker for the day is going to be Mr. Eeshaan Sawant, that's me. I come from Pune, India. I am a technical writer and I lead developer relations for OnlyOffice. I am also an LFX mentee at PipeCD. It's a project under the Linux Foundation. I'm also one of the more younger voices out in this conference. So I've just recently graduated, computer engineering, college from Pune, going great so far. As you can see, I love coffee, one in the image right there in my hand. So yeah, I love coffee. If you need to get a good cup of coffee in Namma Bengaluru, we are right here. We could just maybe get a cup of coffee. Cool. That aside, I said I work for OnlyOffice, right? And what is OnlyOffice? Well, OnlyOffice is an open source office suite. Now, we have majorly two products. We have OnlyOffice Docs, which is basically your day-to-day editors for documents, presentations, spreadsheets, forms, PDFs, all of that. It's everything that you would expect from an office suite, and we have it on an array of platforms. So if you talk about desktop, Mac, Linux, Windows, not a problem. Mobile applications, Android, iOS, again, not a problem. If you want more of something like a web app, well, we have a web app as well. Next, we have the second product I talked about is OnlyOffice Doc Space. Now, this is something where you can, create rooms, public rooms, private rooms, add files into it, add your team members into it, kind of collaborate. So it basically makes your document collaboration better. Cool. Now the agenda. First of all, we'll talk about some problems, some challenges that a lot of people encounter while consuming APIs. Next, we'll talk about developer experience, what it is and how it makes things better. And then next we'll look at some poorly written API specs, some problems with poorly written and what makes them so bad. So some we have personally encountered, while I have personally encountered while writing APIs, maybe some just the famous ones. And lastly, I'll tell you what I learned documenting and writing APIs for the last over 2 years. Now, if we talk about challenges, APIs are everywhere, but consuming them is still a challenge. And the first one comes up to be bad documentation. Now, we've seen this everywhere, right? Broken, those copy codes, those little copy codes, you copy it and it doesn't work in your own code. Broken references, broken links. It's very common. So a developer has to go through this trouble of dealing with bad documentation every single day. And the second one is complex API structure. So we have often seen how APIs are made unnecessarily complex, nested resources, the versioning is kind of messed up. So yeah, and the problems just keep coming, poor visibility in responses. You get a response, but you don't know like, what actually do I need to do? Where is my part in that response? So yeah, the problems are a lot, they keep coming. And to prove my case, well, there is a report, again, Anshul just talked about Postman. Just carrying forward from that, there is a report from Postman where they talk about obstacles to consuming APIs, and it's not very surprising that the lack of documentation kind of tops the list, and it's at a massive 55%. And then we have the second item is also complexity. So again, one of the challenges that I talked about. Yeah, so yeah, bad docs. And now we know, okay, bad docs kind of mean bad API, and bad API in today's age is directly going to affect the profit and revenue of your company. Because in today's age, we see all those MCPs, AIs and all of that. So it's quite evident. So as you can see, it's more than 21% of the companies make more than 75% of their revenue only with APIs. So that's like, I think, one of their major sources of revenue. So it's quite clear now that APIs, if you write them good, they can make your wallet, or if you don't write them good, don't focus on them enough, they can break your wallet. Let's look at a little bit about different sectors when it comes to APIs. So yeah, there's a little pie chart there. Now, divided into 3: public, partner and private APIs. Now, public APIs, again, to give you an example, OpenAPI, let's say, I don't know, OpenAI as well, if the reference is open, but yeah, open source API is basically public APIs. Now, public APIs, here's the thing with public APIs, okay? They have a lot of other resources to refer to. So as a developer, you have a lot of other resources like video contents, maybe you have a lot of articles, maybe you have tutorials, blogs, articles written by other developers or written by other enthusiasts. But so even if, let's say, a public API's docs aren't that good enough, the developer still survives, right? He kind of survives and manages to use the public API. But here's the sad thing, public APIs only make around 18% of the whole APIs that are consumed in today's world. Keeping the partner APIs aside, private APIs comprise of 56% of how much the APIs are consumed, and private APIs are basically your APIs, for internal teams or for internal systems within a company, or maybe 2 different products a company has and all of that. So that's private APIs for you. And if you talk about private APIs, docs is only going to be your way in, because you would not get all of the resources and content that maybe a public API would give. So again, a case to prove that how docs are important. Well, maybe the company has resources, but again, we don't know about it, and they're often minimal. The knowledge shared is pretty minimal. And that's just some posts and examples of frustrated developers ranting about how bad their experiences have been working with various APIs. You can find threads on maybe Reddit. There's a lot of Stack Overflow threads as well, and all of that. So now it's pretty clear that we know what the problem is. I supported my case in some previous slides. But again, companies are still making APIs, companies are still making profit out of APIs, and we saw 75%, insane number. So it's quite clear that it's there, good APIs are there, and there is a solution to this problem. We live in 2025, of course, everything has a solution. So the solution for this, enter developer experience. Now what developer experience is, in the most simple terms, developer experience is basically improving a developer's journey, or his experience, their experience with something. Now the something is more likely than not your software. So let's talk about a developer interacting with your software. There are various ways a developer can interact with your software, right? It can be your APIs, or it can be your SDKs, software development kits, it can be your docs, or much more. So yeah, that's what developer experience is. And someone working in developer experience, as someone kind of making sure that a developer's experience is good, it is our job to make sure that a developer who is using or integrating our software into theirs has minimal problems when it comes to doing it. And when we talk about developer experience, there are a lot of roles. So I was just talking to a lot of people yesterday in the hallway, and I was surprised to see that a lot of people don't know about these terms, like maybe developer experience, or so there are these 2 quite related but kind of different roles when it comes to developer experience. So first of all, we have a DevX engineer or a developer experience engineer. Now what a developer experience engineer does is they manage your API docs for you. So they're pretty good at writing A-grade, inclusive, welcoming, awesome looking APIs. Most importantly, what they know is they know a developer's journey with your API. So they kind of know where the pitfalls are, where the developer is most likely to face a problem, and they always strive to make that experience and kind of minimize those problems. And yeah, they keep the developers happy, of course. And next up we have a dev-rel engineer, or maybe a developer relations engineer, developer advocate. That's something I have transitioned into in OnlyOffice. So what a dev-rel engineer does is they basically bridge the gaps, or create a feedback loop kind of a thing between the developer, the external developer, and the software engineers you have at your backend. So they make this feedback loop, they kind of tell the developers' problems to your software engineers, and kind of drive developer adoption as well. So I was listening to Naresh sir's talk yesterday, and he said, "Jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai." So basically, what it means is what you see is what sells, and a developer relation engineer is basically what it does. What they do is jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. So the dev-rel goes to different developers, kind of interacts with them, helps migrate them into your software, but it's kind of a developer experience's job that once that developer is onboarded, he is retained, and they stay for a longer period of time and keep using your APIs or whatever your software is. So those are two roles I think I just added like 30 minutes ago, because I thought it would be a good thing to share. And you might also question, okay, now I got what all of this means, but why is this important? Well, it's not. If you have maybe, let's say, 2 or 3 clients, and you have a team of 5 or 6 engineers who are assuming that they are pretty good at everything that I just talked about, so advocacy, experience, coding and documenting. So you do not need these complex terms if you have like 6 engineers and 2 or 3 clients. But the problem comes when you scale, right? So when you scale, it's impossible for an engineer, so he's so busy writing his own code that he cannot document that code, let alone going to developers and talking to them and kind of fixing them problems. So it kind of gets very complicated. That is why in a lot of organizations you could see this structure being followed. So I think to just save time, I'll not go through this, but if you want, you can just take a photo. I think a lot of people already did. So again, you can see technical writers for writing, developer advocates for adoption, and DX engineers or developer experience engineers to improve the onboarding and the experience that developer is going to have with your software or your API or your docs. So yeah, now I'll tell you about some problems that I faced when we were just making a new API, and that's when I faced some problems. Even these problems are like highly known, very popular. So the first problem is auto-generated docs. Now don't get me wrong, nothing against auto-generated docs. Tools like Swagger and Redoc are great, awesome. But here's the thing, on the right you can see a very simple example. Again, efficient use of API. The image is AI generated. But yeah, I just needed to get my point across, that is something that an auto-generated software would give you. And if you can see, it's very minimal, lacks details, and it may fail to get your point across. A developer can be left confused. But even if you just add some points here and there and just make it a little, tweak it a little, give it that human touch, make the description a little better, use simpler languages, add on to that, not ditching it completely, but add on to that. What you would get is something like this. So now you can immediately see the description is better. You've got an example string, and the language is simple. So like, yeah, simple things that you can put into your API to make the developer experience better. Next thing, not following inclusivity standards. So this is like a very first world problem that I'm going to talk about. So on the left you can see is an API response example. So they've kind of put the boring old John Smith name, USD for currency, and there's also the date, which is kind of in the US format, but what on the right you can see is a more gender neutral name is used, Riley Chen. The date is ISO formats are followed for the dates, which is followed all around tech, and the currency is also kind of changed. Now my point is not putting in INR instead of USD. That's not the point. The point is, see, if your API audience is all Indian, why would you need something like this? You don't. Like, you don't have to put USD just to be, follow others or whatever. And even if it is more of a global audience you're talking about, it's just the thought of including multiple examples in your docs or your references so that a lot of people feel belonged and they kind of feel, okay, I am included as well. So again, a very first world problem, but I'll talk more about why it is important. And the last point is not leveraging open source or free to use API tools, not baking in accessibility. So like something as simple as tag groups, as you can see. So this is an API from zero, it can take it to a hero. Tag groups, if not a lot of people know, it's a thing in Swagger. So you can use that. Then what something that I promote is using API tools to ship and scale faster. So for us, what really worked was Spectral. I'll talk more about Spectral. So Spectral really helped us improve the linting and kind of ship faster and automate the linting process. I'll talk about that. And the second point, right, baking in accessibility. It's just to make your spec or your document more accessible. So just to give you a fact, you may be surprised that almost 76 people in this world have some kind of hearing aid. So I don't need to stress how much important it is to have a screen reader, make your content screen reader friendly, or have alt text for your images and all of that. Cool, I don't think I have a lot of time, so I'll just wrap up quickly. What worked for us? Well, solving the very problems I just talked about, but just to summarize, API first approach. Now API first approach is basically thinking about your APIs before you actually make the product. So the API design and the nuances that go into your API should already be planned before you start making the product. The point is it should not be an afterthought. Second point, more manual efforts. I just told you how a simple auto-generated doc can be improved with just some additions here and there. Third point, having empathy. Now this one is an important point. So having empathy for developers, baking in accessibility and inclusivity. We talked about baking in accessibility and inclusivity, but what empathy means. So again, a first world problem. Empathy for other developers is basically this thought that, okay, I am making something and a developer, like some other person is going to use it tomorrow. So I have to kind of make sure that I make it perfectly fine so that this other person doesn't have any problem using it or kind of integrating it or whatever. So that's this, and I have worked with a global team who are based in the US or Europe, so I learned it the hard way, and now I know how important having empathy is. So it's a soft skill I think every engineer should look at, regardless of what your role is. And again, the last point, taking advantage of tools and that allow you to ship and scale faster. I talked about how we use Spectral and it worked for us. Well, it's not necessary that you should use Spectral as well. There are a lot of other open source tools. I think Specmatic is open source as well. You can check it out. It's a great tool for resiliency testing and all of that. So yeah, again, worked for me. Spectral, some other tool might work for you. Again, so now I'll show you some examples of what we created. So all of these problems were kind of analyzed before we started creating API for our doc space. Now this is recently completed, made it with my own hands right here with 2 other team members. So this is what we have come up with. It's a beautiful API. I mean, I'll give you a QR code you can review and give your feedback later. But yeah, you can see the 3-panel structure going on. There's the color scheme is kind of carried forward across all the API references in the organization. On the right, you have this mock API request kind of a thing, so you can do that as well. The copy code that actually works for different languages. We even have an API playground, again, with these own hands. You can test your APIs real time, something like this, so you can integrate it in your own code. So for our plugins, right, we do have a lot of plugins for our software, so you can test the code, you can integrate the API and check the changes real time. Even developer facing documentation is greatly written, simple language, easily readable, color schemes, basic, supports contrast, screen, images support, alt text, the whole content supports screen readers and all of that. So yeah, ending on a good note, again, worked for me does not work for us does not mean it will work for you. So for us, I said Spectral work, but that does not mean you should use Spectral as well. So again, it was just a case study, and it was just a way to get my point across that, well, these problems exist and this is how I solve them. And what I want from you guys is basically to kind of look at this and use something, kind of use something different and just, whatever. And again, not a propaganda to boycott Swagger or Redoc. They are great. Just add on to it and make your content better. Third point, not a promotion for Spectral, of course. And fourth point, accessibility might feel dumb, but is a thing. So like, you might think, okay, these are all first world problems, but like, it's a thing. If you're making it for your global audience, it should be something you should keep in your mind. Yeah, that's my LinkedIn if you would want to connect. Not a lot of people in the room, but yeah, it's my LinkedIn. And yep, thank you for being with me. We're a great audience. That's a QR for the OnlyOffice API that you can check out and give feedback on. And yeah, I'm open for questions, any questions that you guys might have. Cool, thank you.
Any questions?
Finished pretty on time, I think. Yeah, two minutes, yeah.
Okay, Eeshaan, I do want to tell you something. In my introduction, I said your title is actually a truism, which is you're saying making AIs for human. But slide after slide, it just feels like truism after truism, when you talk about empathy, when you talk about good documentation. Yesterday, Mehdi was talking about thinking of your APIs as a product that is going to be consumed by somebody else. So essentially, you're building something that is going to be used. So you want to make sure that you don't pain them, that you create a seamless experience for them to use what you have built. And that's a great lens to look at APIs. And your talk was essentially reinforcing that point. So thank you so much. It was a very engaging talk.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Awesome. Cool. Any other questions from anyone or? Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for being a great audience.